out of third. Glory. If you're a diehard Buffy fan, Glory to you means the season 5 antagonist, played by Claire Kramer. When I spent time with my old high school friend Tom at his home experiencing the charismatic side of Christianity, I learned not only a handful of songs that I still can pull up for Sunday school once in a while, but I learned that the visible manifestation of God's glory in the Old Testament is called the Shekinah glory of God. It's from the Hebrew. And much later, I learned that Leonard Nimoy was a student of his Jewish heritage. And when, during the shooting of Star Trek, he felt some kind of Vulcan hand sign was needed, he went back to that heritage to bring this to the program, which is a sign or representation of the Shekinah glory of God. It's a physical reference to that great glory that would be with the tent of meeting, for example, when they were traversing the desert under Moses. Lastly, I remember the Old Testament Professor Bernard Anderson. I mentioned him recently. It was during his post-lunch lectures that I confessed to dozing off, even though they were great. I remember Professor Anderson preaching in chapel on this epistle lesson that we had. Excitedly, he asked us to really take time with the images given when we hear, "For it is the God who said, 'Let there be light,' or 'let light shine out of darkness,' who has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge, glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ." Glory. Glory. Do we think about it much? We might occasionally be pointed to an athletic championship like those who are winning gold or even silver or bronze in the Winter Olympics. That's athletic glory. Or what's written about in battles and wars and heroes, glory of that kind. Or maybe the glow you felt around the achievements of a loved one, or perhaps yourself, in their hour of achievement and quote-unquote glory. Generally, though, I do not think you and I spend a lot of time pondering glory, and in particular, perhaps in particular, on the glory of God, unless we're in church on Transfiguration Sunday. And it occurred to me that some of us who are newer to the church, if you've never been to the balcony or gone up that stairwell, we have 2 big stained glass windows, and one is of the baptism of Christ, and the other one is of the Transfiguration. That's facing Oakton Street. So if you've never gone up to the balcony, you don't even have to go all the way up to take that stained glass window of the Transfiguration in. But I digress. It is entirely possible, then, that some of you brave souls who went through our winter storm and shoveling or snow blowing or moving, digging cars up, and what have you, you might already be thinking, okay, what does this talk of glory have to do with me and what's going on? I'll turn down the intensity of my attention until I hear a story come up. If so, you're falling into a trap. Transfiguration glory was for Jesus, and for the inner circle of 3, I kind of always feel sorry for Andrew, Peter's brother, as Peter, James, and John were. What about Andrew? He was the 4th of the 4, now he's not there. That's not something that presents itself to us, unless we're blessed to have this hugely special kind of experience of God. The story of the Transfiguration does teach us that Jesus, the man, is more than just a man. He truly is the Son of God, reaffirmed as a baptism by the Father and the representatives of the law and the prophets. The more we appreciate that, the deeper we understand Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus the Christ. It's a faith acknowledging deepener. It deepens our faith when we understand more. But the trap says, oh, that's not so relevant when some of us really are having a hard time at work, or we're worried about larger issues like the direction of our democracy, when foreign cyber attacks have been made in our elections, but nothing is done except the non-enforcement of sanctions against that same foreign power. So let's move on. The trap says, let's check my phone. I think that how you and I, Christians who have these worries, or certainly others, how you and I face those and try to do something about them, of course, matters. The glory of the Lord plays a part in this, especially when we look at it in Paul's passage, so beloved by Professor Anderson. What am I getting at? Let me back up just a touch in the reading. In speaking of those who do not get the good news of Jesus, Paul said, in their case, the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ. And then, almost as if to contrast that spirit with the spirit within believers, he continued, for we do not proclaim ourselves. We do not proclaim ourselves. We proclaim Jesus Christ as Lord and ourselves as your slaves for Jesus' sake. The God of this world, usually interpreted as Satan or the devil, is at least that spirit that prevents us from seeing that true glory and greatness and where it lies. It can be, as looking at this passage in that little bit that I just read, it can be a spirit of arrogance and self-importance, as if one preaches him or herself in some powerful way. We can answer that. We can do that for you. Look at us. We are the answer. Many pastors end up proclaiming themselves, maybe without realizing it. It does not have to be, but it makes some sense. We generally consider pride to be the original sin, right? We don't really need God. We can manage just fine on our own. Thank you. So let's go ahead and ignore what God said and eat that fruit. Thanks, but no thanks. But those who get it, who get the real source of what Paul calls glory, understand that it's not all about us. It's not all about the things that are important to us. Our church, our family, our company, our state, our denomination, our country. Instead, those who get to see the true greatness and glory understand Paul's next words. We do not proclaim ourselves. We proclaim Jesus Christ as Lord and ourselves as your slaves for Jesus' sake. The power from God. This is what I've been trying to build up to. The glory of Jesus, which does have a heavenly light of creation origin, is also the power, the glory of Jesus. It's from servant. It's from Jesus, who put himself at the service of others, like we've been hearing about the past few weeks in church. You remember, he cast out unclean spirits, liberating souls from an internal oppression. Words fail to articulate. He cured people that very same night of all kinds of diseases. And and when you do that, when you heal someone or cure someone, you're helping people who are at a disadvantage. You're helping families because they need those ill mothers and fathers and children and spouses and siblings to get well again. Perhaps because the ability of the family to pay rent or heat could depend on it. And so for them to be cured or healed, that changes everything for the good. That's being really helpful, being of service to others. Jesus served the people when he miraculously also took those 5 loaves and 2 fish that are included in John's gospel and made them a feast so big the leftovers were hard to manage. Jesus did not profit from any of that. He did not charge for his services. In fact, one theory of why he was killed has to do with the doctors of his day, who were, the theory says, they were so furious at him healing so many people for free that they were losing lots and lots of business. They couldn't have that anymore. The God of this world is that spirit which prevents us and others from seeing the true glory and greatness lie not in power at the top or in one's self that may be proclaimed, but in a helping servant role. Not necessarily at a top, but perhaps even at a bottom. The power and the glory and greatness of God can be measured not by the number of people over whom we might lord, but by the number of people whom we serve. Jesus came to serve and to help and to lift up. Most powerfully on Calvary, that too is where his glory is, according to John's Gospel. That and the resurrection. That's the glory of God that we might see in the face of Jesus Christ. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Mark 10:45. So Paul can say, we are your slaves for Jesus' sake. We proclaim this. We're approaching life to the best of our ability as Jesus did. And that's a way to glory that no mountaintop splendor of the Godhead would argue with. That approach as servants of love and light, who have this light and love spoken into our souls by the creating, saving God, that does make a difference in how you and I respond to crises. It could be personal. It could be familial. It could be church-wide or national. The servant angle says, what can we do to help, to serve, to make better, to make more just? In the name of Jesus, for the sake of Jesus, how can we serve to help this along? 2 days ago, the Chicago Tribune columnist Mary Schmeek had a column about snow angels. Now, I thought at first it was going to be about those things kids make when they get down in the snow and move their arms up and down. You don't have to be a kid to do that, I know. But no, when I was thinking, how can you write a whole column about that? Well, she didn't. She was talking about all those persons who help out their neighbors by plowing their driveways before they can, if they even have a snowblower, or by shoveling the sidewalk and steps of a home where seniors live, and even those who know the older folks who can't get out but need medications from the local pharmacy during a snowstorm, they take care of it because they know these people can't get out and get there. Now, Mary does not, she doesn't mention religious faith, let alone the glory of Christ as a motivating factor or source of joy or strength for those snow angels. She just celebrates them and reminds us how it's done, how it's not done, and if expressing gratitude, how that's done and not done. I know for a fact that one husband of a member snow blows the entire block that they live on to help them along, to help these neighbors just because he wants to and believes it's important to help out. That's one way that you and I can reflect the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ as a servant, or even using the strong Greek language, a slave for others. For Jesus' sake, he was laid down his life for us. There was someone else who had a sudden death in the immediate family. There were things that had to be done within the next handful of hours, a lot of balls in the air. All the same, in a spirit of servant dedication, remembering the needs of unknown others, knowing it was the deadline to drop off sloppy joes for our ageist harvest serving, they got over here with her tray within those couple of hours. The glory and greatness of God can be found not in the persons over whom we may have authority, look at us, but by the number of persons who we serve and we help. They can be found not in the accumulation of things that may bring us pleasure, but in the distribution of things that provide for others. This was the glory of Jesus Christ. I mentioned him feeding the hungry crowds and healing hundreds, if not thousands. He saved the face, figuratively speaking, he saved the face of the bridegroom's family in John's Gospel, when he turned water into wine at the wedding reception in Cana. For to run out of wine at a big feast like that, in the Middle Eastern valley placed on hospitality, that would have been a disaster for that family. But he saved face for them by making this conversion of all the water in the ceremonial jars into wine. He washed the disciples' feet, we know, and then gave them the new commandment, love one another as I have loved you. He poured out the wine, and he broke the bread, and gave up himself, and that was the glory of the Lord. We are his slaves, or permanent, unpaid, 365, 24/7 servants of him and ideally one another. One pope famously said, as pastors, we ministers are the servants of God. I've always found meaning in that. Ministers are the servants of the servants of God. Do you and I want to share and see the glory of Christ? We will, and we have, when our eyes are open to see that the Lord's glory, in addition to the transfiguring Shekinah glory those three got to experience, when our eyes are open to see that the Lord's glory was in serving others, helping and loving others, and in a final act, dying and rising again for others. No platitudes here. Do you and I want to share in the glory of the Lord that we see in the face of Jesus? Then let us continue to become like him, the servant of others. How? Why again? Why again? For it is the God, Creator God, cast the universes and galaxies into being, the God who said, let light shine out of darkness, who has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. That light is also resurrection, love, and life, which we shall also need to bring healing to our families, our communities, our churches,